Today we're going to be comparing the iPhone 16 to this $5,000 full frame camera setup. One of the great things about the iPhone 16 is it has this cinematic video mode. Right now we're going to do some product shots, see what the stabilization looks like with the different cameras. Now the biggest thing we noticed from that test is the iPhone 16 is less contrasty. It still looks really good, honestly. The details were crisp and the background blur was on point. Next we're gonna test the stabilization. This is a $5,000 camera. How does it look? I hope it looks good. That was fun. Oh, we need to go all the way back now. Next we're gonna test the iPhone 16. How does it look? Is London keeping up with me? Is it like super slow? I'm actually really curious. Going at a jogging pace, the iPhone did perfectly, but once we started running, it started to shake a little bit. Whereas the $5,000 camera setup was buttery smooth. I was really surprised how good that looked. So just a brief vlogging test. This is with the $5,000 camera setup. As you can see, really smooth. We also have the Rode Video Mic Pro Plus on there for the audio. It's another advantage of having a big rig like this versus the iPhone 16. This is actually the front-facing camera, so it is probably worse than the rear-facing camera, but really clear screen. I can monitor myself a lot easier than with the expensive camera. I guess I could have attached a really expensive monitor on top. Why didn't I do that? The audio is straight out of the iPhone, so it probably is worse. But what do I know? I'm just a YouTuber that has no subscribers. I'm gonna cut that part out. Now, I actually like the iPhone 16's picture better here. It looks more natural to me. The Pro setup has the advantage of having a wider field of view and that shotgun microphone, but the iPhone 16 audio is actually really good. It surprised me. Another amazing feature about the iPhone 16 is this 0.5 zoom, essentially a super wide angle field of view. So you can see almost the entire room, even though the phone is just in my hand right here. But take a look at what happens when I use a cheap wide angle lens on my expensive camera. As you can see, this lens is much wider. This is about my hand distance away, and look at how much more you can see in the background. As an example, I'm gonna put the camera a certain distance away from me and we'll see how close it can be and still see my head to toe. So first let's do it with the iPhone. Right now my cameraman is about 5-6 feet away. He's gonna get closer and I'm gonna tell you how close the iPhone is and you can still see my whole body. You're like still 4.5 feet away, just to see my whole body. Watch what happens when we use the other camera. 5 feet away now, go ahead and get closer. All right, 4 feet, 3, how about now? The cameraman is about 2.5 feet away from me. As you can see on my iPhone, he's literally right there. You can achieve a much wider effect with an expensive camera, obviously. Next, we're gonna test the portrait mode in the iPhone versus using a portrait lens on the full frame camera. So in a second here, you're gonna see the lights go from this to this. These are lights. Okay. The first thing you'll notice about the iPhone is the picture straight out of the box is very HDR. It evens out a lot of the tones, and this one even looks overly sharp. The professional camera setup has a lot more contrast. There's a lot more background blur, a lot less noise. And the sharpness looks a lot less artificial. When we go to the second test, the iPhone actually looks a lot better, in my opinion, than in that last test. The details are a lot better, not overly sharp, and it just gives a really cool aesthetic to these photos. But then when you compare that to the original camera, again, we get more contrast, punchier colors straight out of the camera. Finally, we did this unique artsy type shoot. As you can see, the HDR actually makes the image look kind of cool with the iPhone in this instance. More natural almost. But then with the Pro camera setup, you get this really cool, punchy, contrasty, edgy effect. I think these pictures look insane. The fact that there's no editing on these whatsoever is crazy to me. Anyways, that's that test. This is with the iPhone 16. Right now we are at 2x zoom. We're just gonna keep zooming in to this tree. And as you see, that's about as far as it can go, 6x zoom. Go ahead and observe the quality here of this magnificent tree. Let's look at this other tree over here. Wow, not bad. Now we have an 85mm lens in 1.5x crop mode on my Sony full frame camera. This is what the tree looks like. You'll probably notice good amount more detail. Let's look at the other tree. I'm not gonna lie, this tree looks a million times better on this than on the iPhone. I'll punch into both of those so you can see just how close or far the detail is. And let's move on. Next, we're testing the slow-mo. This is the $5,000 Pro setup. As you can see, really crisp details, but it only goes down to 120 FPS. The iPhone 16, on the other hand, can go to 240 FPS. That's twice as slow. It's also really easy to edit the ramping of speed on iPhone directly, but the picture quality does not look great, especially the colors. For the second slow-mo shot, I did a backflip, more of an action shot. You can see the wrinkles on my clothes pretty well, and you can go really slow, which is a really nice feature of the iPhone. Versus the Pro camera here, we can actually slap an 85mm lens on there and get great compression, which you can't do on iPhone, really crisp details, and background separation. Finally, we have the low light test, and as you can see on the iPhone, really grainy here. And on the camera setup, it's a little bit better, but remember this is video, so not amazing still. When we switch to photos, that's when the iPhone really starts to break down. To compensate for the low light, it does 3-second exposures, which just leaves the picture ending blurry. But the Pro camera setup looks incredible. Really crisp details, great background blur. You can barely even tell it's low light. One last thing to note about the full frame camera setup is it does take about 35 seconds to set it up on the gimbal and everything. If you want speed and reliability, pull out your iPhone, press that camera control button, instantly take a picture like I just did. It is much faster than having to carry camera around with you. You're gonna be able to capture a lot more story-driven moments if you can just pull this out, because you always have it with you. For now, until smart glasses replace phones, but we're almost there. That's the video. Which one do you think is better? Throw it down in the comments. Okay.